did you want to hit on that wasn't hit on in the debate, possibly?
You know, I think sometimes in the heat of debates and the clash of ideas, there's a tendency for the participants to lose that sense of grace. And I think I should have said more about this. That reasonable people can disagree about a complex subject like how do we organize the delivery of education services in Douglas County. It's an extraordinarily complicated question. Lots of moving parts, lots of difficult issues. And I think we have to concede on all sides that we have to allow for the possibility that good, decent, reasonable people can have a different view. And I think sometimes in the hoopla and the roar and the applause and the yelling and all that, humble point sometimes gets lost. And I think that would have been something nice to come up if both sides had taken a pause to say, you know, this is a complicated set of questions, and good people can disagree, and we can do so in a civil and a respectful way.
Okay, and a lot was said about how everybody on the current board right now kind of acts as one body. Is there anything that you currently disagree with other board members about, anything specific that you've had arguments with the other current members?
Oh, I think we've had a variety of differences of views about ways of implementing the vision of the strategic plan that we approved back in March of 2011 and reapproved in March of this year. But I do think there's a consensus on the board. All 7 of us believe, and we've all been democratically elected, we've persuaded a majority of Douglas County voters to agree with us that choice for parents and choice for teachers and choice for students is a much more effective way of organizing education than a central command and control monopolistic approach. And so there is a consensus about that vision. There is a consensus about that strategic level of view. As far as how you implement that and the details of implementing that, first of all, you know, we allow our staff, our teachers, our administrative staff, our principals, our school-based leadership to figure out how those things are best implemented on a school-specific basis that respond to the unique idiosyncrasies of each micro-community around schools. So that vision that includes freedom is also a vision of decentralization. And that means that the implementation of that strategic vision is going to vary throughout the district as individual buildings experiment, try different approaches, meet the unique needs of their micro-communities. So, but there are differences on the board about sometimes even the broad contours of implementation of the strategic vision. We've had divided votes on a number of issues. It's always civil and collaborative and an exchange of views in public so that voters and others can see that there are some differences occasionally. But I would concede that our board is unanimous in its vision that freedom works.
Okay. And also what you said about how the idea is going to differ from school to school because of how the funding is sent through administration. Is there a way that you guys monitor, or should there be a better way implemented to make sure that the funding is going to the proper places, to make sure that clubs and sports and activities and things like that are all getting the proper funding needed for students?
Well, 92 cents of every dollar that we get in this district goes to the classroom, goes to the buildings. That's as it should be. You know, we defer to individual schools, individual buildings to make those resource allocation decisions that advance the mission of the building. Because in any different school, there's a different answer. Where does the next dollar produce the best result? It varies by the school. And we don't think as a board, or even the superintendent and her staff centrally are equipped, have the information, have the data to make that decision, that resource allocation decision for each school. And so each school in our district gets to make those choices, and we respect those choices and we defer to those choices. And by the way, that includes charter schools. Charter schools have great autonomy in their own governance, in fact. We give them the money, the per pupil revenue, and they make those decisions. And that's as it should be. So in terms of, you know, monitoring, of course, you know, there are audit functions. There are systems that are in place to make sure that there's no waste, fraud, and abuse. That's important for the taxpayer to have confidence that tax dollars are being used in appropriate ways and ways that are consistent with the mission of the organization. And so there's an audit function that obviously is important to make sure. But beyond that, you know, we really champion that local building-based autonomy.
And on the topic of money, I read an article on the Highlands Ranch Herald recently about how the current incumbents right now, this time last election season, had raised over 150 grand, and this election season it's only been about 10 grand, from not including things like third-party donations. So does that raise any concerns for you going into the election, such like a small amount of donations?
No, it doesn't, because, I mean, first of all, there'll be additional reports that will be coming in. I think there's a report that's due next week, and it's going to show additional contributions for all the candidates, all 6 of us, I'm sure. Part of the point of really incumbency is that you've gotten your message out, and so I think we just, you know, don't need the same resources that we needed 4 years ago to get our message out, because we've been talking to people in the community over and over and over the last 4 years. We've been listening to their views and to their perspectives and to their suggestions. And so to some extent, the funding differential reflects the fact of incumbency, that we've been communicating for 4 years, and the need for additional dollars isn't there.